So today we're going to actually find out which retinoid is best for your needs. And we're going to do that by looking at your skin type and your climate. And we're going to decide what vehicle your retinoid should be in, be it a gel, a lotion, or a cream. We're going to discuss all of the different retinoids, including the retinol, the pros and cons of each, how to administer them, and what you could expect to get out of them. And if you watch to the end, Professor Scruffington is going to tell you the 5 celebrity secrets to getting the most benefits out of your retinoid. The retinoids are vitamin A derivatives. Retinoids have been around since the early 70s. The first was Retinoid, or Retin-A. It was used to treat acne, and it did a wonderful job. It would reverse some of the stages that were involved in creating the acne lesions in the first place. However, by the early 80s, it was noted that Retin-A possessed beautiful rejuvenation properties, reducing fine lines and wrinkles, getting rid of solar lentigos or solar lentiges, sunspots, and giving an overall better appearance to the facial skin. In fact, it was so much that if you were a physician like myself practicing in the 80s, patients were clamoring for prescriptions for Retin-A. And if they couldn't get them, they were running to Mexico. That's how hot it became, and that's still the same today. We're going to be discussing Retin-A and the second and third generations of the retinoids, including retinol. And we're going to find out what are the differences between each and which is better suited for you. But before you choose any retinoid, it's important to look at your skin type, see how sensitive your skin is to irritants, and to look at your climate. These products, or almost all medications, come in a vehicle. That's what holds the medication in the tube. Now, if you have dry skin, then a cream is probably better for you. It'll give a nice moisture to the skin, and it'll help the product get absorbed. If you live in an arid climate, the cream is also probably better for you. If you have moist, oily skin, then the gel is better. The gel has an alcohol base, therefore it evaporates very quickly. And when it evaporates, it allows the product to be absorbed into the skin at a faster rate and a higher concentration. So people with oily skin prefer the gels, and mixed skin might take a lotion. Now, in discussing retinoids, initially there were 2. We had Retinoid, which was Retin-A, and we had retinol. Let's discuss retinol first. Retinol, being non-prescription, is really more of a cosmetic, and it's seen in many high-end cosmeceuticals. However, retinol has to be converted to its active retinoic acid, and it does that in a 2-step process. And unfortunately, during that 2-step process, only about 5% of the retinol actually becomes the active form, which means the results from a retinol are not going to be as good as they would be from Retinoid or Retin-A. However, you do get results with them. The reason they're so popular is they're readily available, found in many cosmetics, and since it's a cosmetic, it feels good when it goes on the skin. It goes on smoothly. It doesn't feel chalky or pasty, and most of all, it doesn't cause irritation. It will take out fine lines and wrinkles, and it will reduce solar lentiges or sunspots, but it's going to take a longer period of time, and it's not going to work quite as well as Retin-A. One of the drawbacks, though, to using these products, since it's not FDA regulated, one cosmeceutical could be much higher strength than another. And studies have shown that some of these cosmeceuticals have such a poor concentration and poor quality retinol that it's really not giving any benefit at all. So I tell my patients to always stick with the big name brands. Neutrogena, CeraVe, La Roche-Posay. That's my favorite because it's made by Galderma, which makes Dysport as well as Restylane. So now let's look at Retin-A. Retin-A is Retinoid. It's already retinoic acid, by the way. Therefore, there's no conversion required. However, it needs a prescription, so you have to go to a medical professional to obtain Retin-A. And it comes in 3 strengths: 0.025, 0.05, and 0.1%. Usually, I prescribe the 0.05. I find right in the middle gives a nice result. However, if you're using it for acne, you're probably going to be at the 0.1% range. So, Professor Scruffington, can you tell us what's the benefits of Retin-A?
Yes, let's discuss now exactly what these retinoids do. They're quite amazing drugs. What they do is increase cellular turnover. And increasing cellular turnover, it pushes off the outer layers of dead skin cells. Now that's very important because in a person of 20, you might find a turnover of every 28 days. But a chap of 60 might turn over every 50 days, which means those external layer of cells is exposed to the sun and all its nasty elements for a longer period of time, allowing for the visible evidence of skin damage, yellows, browns, and reds, not to mention sunspots and wrinkles. That's a very important element. Number 2 is they increase collagen as well as fibrin. That means, in layman's terms, you're going to have a better looking, higher quality skin. And now, the major point I'm going to leave to Dr. Glenn.
He left the most important benefit to me. Retin-A has been shown in peer-reviewed studies to prevent the formation of premalignant lesions and even destroy premalignant lesions that might have already developed. That is one major benefit, if you ask me. Forget about the fine lines and wrinkles, forget about the sunspots, that's all benign stuff. The use of Retin-A, including the 2nd and 3rd generation retinoids that we're going to discuss in a few minutes, can actually save your life. So what is the problem with this wonder drug? The problem is it caused such high level of cellular turnover. It's very irritating. If you used it for acne, you were most likely told to use a higher strength and to put it on nightly. The reason we put it on nightly, by the way, is UV rays from the sun destroy Retin-A. Well, you found that in about 2 weeks, your acne looked worse. Your skin was dry, chafed, red. Some people found it to be tender. And that made compliance go right out the window. People stopped taking the Retin-A for their acne. So the way we could get around that is to either use a lower strength, but since you've already paid for it, it really isn't cost effective. The best thing you could do then is to start using it every other night and slowly work up to nightly. But there's some good news regarding irritation from Retin-A. Professor Scruffington?
If you find that the retinoids are a bit too irritating, there's a few things you could do. You can switch to a lower concentration or try another formulation entirely. But I have very splendid news. If you are using the retinoid for acne control, then you're going to require the higher dose. In time though, the irritation will get better as the skin gets used to the higher turnover of cell. But if you're using it for rejuvenation, then using the lower percentage versus the higher percentage has very little impact in the clinical change. That means that a low dose is as equal to a high dose if you are using it for simple rejuvenation.
That's really a great finding, because that means that if you're using it for rejuvenation, you could get away with using the lowest strength, and it's not going to have that much clinical difference than using the highest strength. The drug companies realized they had a problem here. They had a wonder drug. However, compliance was a big issue because it was just too darn irritating. Whenever you have a medication have a 2nd and 3rd generation developed, it's usually to target some problem and make it more palatable and more compliant. And that's just what happened with these 2nd and 3rd generation retinoids. When we went to Adapalene, that treated basically 3 areas that were problems. First, like I said, Retin-A would be deactivated by the sun. Adapalene is not. Retin-A was deactivated by benzoyl peroxide. Very common in drugs like Clearasil, the over-the-counter pimple creams. So you might be taking Retin-A for your acne and inadvertently buy this over-the-counter pimple cream and ruin your Retin-A. Well, Adapalene is not sensitive to benzoyl peroxide, and it was somewhat less irritating than Retin-A. Not much less, but still less. Then we had Altreno. Altreno, again, was an improvement upon the Adapalene. And then finally we have Tazarotene. That's the newest formulation of retinoid, and it's strong. However, it's much more stable. Unfortunately, these 2nd and 3rd generation retinoids are being predominantly used for acne. However, patients are using them for rejuvenation and getting wonderful results, even better than the Retin-A. And because of that, I believe in the near future there's going to be a lot more data on these 2nd and 3rd generations as far as usefulness in rejuvenation. It's also going to be very important to consider what your expectation is. Do you want the ultimate in wrinkle reduction and solar lentigine removal and protection from development of premalignant skin lesions? Then the retinoids are going to be for you. If you don't want to have any problems with irritation and you're in no rush and you want some improvement, you don't care how long it takes, then the retinols are good for you. And since they're non-prescription, you could get it very easily. Say you really wanted the most improvement, but the Retin-A was too irritating, and the Adapalene was too irritating, and the Tazarotene was too irritating, then you could go to a retinol. You're still going to get improvement. You're not going to have all those problems. It's just going to take some time. Congratulations, you've made it this far into the video. So Professor Scruffington has the 5 celebrity secrets to getting the most benefit from your retinoids.
And now the 5 celebrity secrets. Now for this I'm going to go to my favorite journal. No, not the New England Journal. I'm going straight to the Inquirer. Let's see. Dr. Glenn Messina? I've never heard of the chap. Must be the dog that's the celebrity. Well, according to this, Dr. Messina's 5 tips. Number 1, use a small quantity. A pea-sized dab at the tip of the finger should cover your entire face. And remember, avoid the eyes. It's not made to get into the eye. Number 2, put it on at night, at least an hour before bedtime and after you've washed and added your first level of moisturizer. Number 3, avoid harsh sunlight. The UVA and UVB rays, for Retin-A in particular, will inactivate it almost immediately. Number 4, a Retin-A sandwich. In other words, moisturize, let it dry, put on another layer of Retin-A, let that dry, put on a 3rd coat of moisturizer. This Retin-A sandwich will allow for better absorption and less irritation. And number 5, most important of all, patience. You will not see results immediately. Now, Dr. Messina took some tazarotene and he ran to the mirror the next morning to see if his fine lines and wrinkles were gone. Foolish chap that he is. These medications take 2 to 3 months before we see the results. Using Retin-A and the retinoids long term will give you more beautiful skin, better quality skin, and a reduction in the development of premalignant lesions.
So now we know that retinoids are the crown jewel of any rejuvenation program. They should be used nightly and long term. I hope you liked this video. If you like this type of information, remember to click subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted to future videos. And here's a few that I think you might like.